This is Space Cats Peace Turtles, the unofficial podcast for Dune by Gale Force 9, episode 119. Dune, Learning the Spacing Guild. Music by Brian Capillas. Hosted by Hunter Donaldson and Matt Martins. Hunter, I'm afraid of this one.
What are you afraid of?
There's so much. There's so many things that we're going to do today. Oh, let me tell you.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. If you like long episodes of Space Cats Peace Turtles, you are probably safe today. If that is something you're into.
Let's just run through the slate of today. So first up, we're going to do, this is a Dune episode, as you could tell by the music, but that's okay. You're going to get a TI fix. Don't be afraid. There's some Dune stuff, and then there's going to be some more Dune stuff, because we didn't do the Atreides Errata ever. So we have to do that. And then we're also going to do the Harkonnen Errata from a while back. So we have all of that, and then on top of that, there have been just oodles, Hunter, oodles of tournament games that we need to catch you up on. In fact, there's so many that we're not even going to do all of them today, because this upcoming week, there are very few games, so we're going to leave a few to talk about in next week's episode. So we're going to cover 5 games, it looks like today, 5-ish games. And keep you up to date on what's going on. We're also we didn't do this last time, and I really wanted to. We're going to talk about kind of just a little bit of the stats so far. We won't be able to get too in depth yet, but I just wanted to kind of like look at some of like what trends we're seeing in the tournament. So boy, it's a thick one, everybody. Mm-hmm. And
we say this, and then we're gonna like blow through it in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's definitely happened ever, Hunter. We're so good at the beginning of it being like, oh, let's make this one fast. And then every time we've done that, that's been the like 2.5 hour long episode. So I'm not even saying it this time. Let's just do it. Hunter, you're kind of the Spacing Guild boy today. I kind of owe you a Dune episode. You've kind of taken the lead on the past 2. So I know that I'll be taking the lead on Fremen coming up here soon. But you're gonna walk us through some thoughts on the Spacing Guild, huh? And again, we've kind of said this the past couple times, but this is not like the ultimate strategy guide to playing the Spacing Guild. This is like hey, this is to get you started, give you some early concepts to be aware of and strategies to keep in mind, so that you can then teach yourself like how to push that further and further and learn your own specific style, which I think is kind of a big deal in Dune. I mean, Bill Eberly told us that in his interview. His favorite thing about the game is seeing how your friends take on the role. What kind of Fremen is Hunter versus what kind of Harkonnen is Hunter. So
sure.
So everyone's got their own thing. But Hunter, give me that rundown on the Spacing Guild's startup.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about their overview first. Basically, at the start of the game, they start with 5 forces on TX. Which is, I looked it up. That's how you pronounce it. Is this Tiak?
Oh, is it?
Tiak. Siech.
It's 2 rocks, Siech.
Tiak.
Siech. Remember those games, 2 rock? Right.
So you start with 5 on that stronghold. So you control 1 stronghold at the beginning of the game. You have 15 in your reserves. You start with 5 spice, which is not a lot.
Not a lot.
Your leaders, you have a 1, a 2, a 3, a 3, and a 5, which is
Hunter,
bad.
That's super bad.
That's bad.
That's not great.
That is, I think, numerically the worst, but also just bad. Like, it doesn't. I don't even care stat-wise, or I don't even care where they are. It's just meant, and it's meant to be bad. Yeah. They get 1 free revival every time they revive,
which is very bad as well.
Yeah,
just not a units guy, kind of guy, which is funny considering what we're about to get into. But like right off the bat, the first thing you can note of them is like they don't start with many units, they don't have much stuff to back up getting more units, and they don't, they don't revive well, and they don't have good leaders. It's just like nothing good going on with their forces on the board.
Yeah, well, so the way I would describe the Spacing Guild to a Twilight Imperium player that had never played Dune before, the way I would describe them is like they're sort of like the Hakan if the Hakan was counterbalanced in the same way that Jolnar is.
Right, a -1 to their infantry, basically. Like
bad at fighting, but instead of, there's no tech really in Dune, so instead it's just like economy. And their economy is great. Their first advantage to talk about is called payment for shipment. When other factions ship forces onto Dune from their off-planet reserves, they pay the spice to you instead of the spice bank. So that's great. You're very much like the Emperor in that you make money when other players do certain things.
Yeah, I would say even better than the Emperor because, people would like cards, but people gotta put units on the board, like at some point. I mean, that's just a necessary part of the game.
Yeah. It's what's interesting about payment for shipping as far as like it kind of counterbalances itself of like if someone is going to make some sort of crazy move and attack you suddenly, well, they probably had to pay to ship to wherever you are, so they kind of automatically give you cash whenever they do that, which the Emperor doesn't quite work like that. The Emperor, I think, gets more steady money, especially early game, because people just need cards.
Yeah.
However, the way the Spacing Guild makes money is, I think, more closely tied to a relationship of them being like kind of the counter puncher or like the person that you can't really like force the Spacing Guild into a situation. They're slippery and they're sneaky.
Yeah,
I said slippery really weird
slippery.
there. Slippery. I was like, I turned into a robot. Their next advantage is called 3 types of shipment, which is not a very cute name for an ability.
None of the abilities in this. It's not in TI. Everything has like a very thematic name. In Dune, it's very like what the economist like put together for these names. Like it's just like, yes, they have 3 types of shipment. We will call it 3 types of shipment.
It's not like TI. They're trying to just tell you what it is, though. I would say that's the advantage of it.
It's clear,
more obvious what things are. But basically, the Spacing Guild can ship one of 3 different types of shipments on their turn. You can ship normally from off-planet reserves to Dune, like everybody else. So was that even worth noting? Number 2, you may ship any number of forces from any one territory to any other territory on the board. So basically, Spacing Guild can use shipment to move. Everyone else, once the forces get on Dune, they can only move like 1, or if they control ornithopters, 3.
Right.
And you
can just pay to do it, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. You can just pay to move anywhere whenever you want.
Right. And you may ship any number of forces from any one territory back to your reserves. You can turtle,
Yeah.
You can just be like, oh, nope. In fact, nothing happens because I've left.
How often do you do that, though? I mean, I don't understand how the shipping to my reserves could really, like, paying to just remove my own units from the board seems like a weird prospect. And I've always had trouble figuring out why I would utilize that.
I mean, I think I think in doing these introductions, I kind of want to call out when we've entered a spot that's just like, we have not played enough games to say why.
That's the point here. It's very much like we're here learning kind of with everybody else, and I think this is a thing that everybody hits up against, and they kind of go, what is that good for?
Yeah.
And, this is a big one for me.
I have seen some players talk about it, and I think it is just like, it really makes no difference for the Spacing Guild to ship to wherever they want or back to their reserves, so why not let them have it? It's kind of a situation where I think it's about pulling your forces in and not risking anybody. So, one thing that we're going to get on in just a second is that basically Spacing Guild can ship and move whenever they want in the order.
Yeah.
So let's say you're in a situation where you're like, I just need to full-on retreat and get more forces out of the Talaxu tanks, and it's going to take a while. I go first. I ship everybody back to the reserves. Now no one can take any forces from me whatsoever. Yeah. Right. And that's theory crafty right there. But yeah, I don't know. Half price is their next advantage. You only pay half the normal fee when shipping your forces.
So you start with less, but you're very easily going to get kind of matched up with everybody else in terms of like the round 2 numbers. You're going to be more or less on par with where everybody else is at on the board.
Right. And you also pay 1 spice for every 2 of your forces shipped back to the reserves, which is actually maybe another way to say, like, like it's pretty cheap to ship back to the reserves if you need to,
Gotcha.
And then their next advantage is the Spacing Guild special victory condition. If no faction has been able to win the game by the end of play, you have prevented control of Dune and automatically win the game. So basically, if it's a long game, Spacing Guild can just kind of try and time it out.
Right.
And there you go.
Well, and that feeds directly into their ability to kind of control. So, like, they're going to have so much money. We're about to get into the ship and move when you wish thing, but it's worth mentioning this ability before we get into that, being that, like, because you're all about these sneaky things, the sneaky thing you can do doesn't even have to be like some big maneuver to secure a victory for yourself. It's just like you can always adopt the strategy of stop everyone else. Yes. You can just do that all game long and then eventually win.
Yes, for sure. And then, let's go ahead and get their next advantage out because it's a doozy, and it kind of, there's a lot of verisimilitude with the Spacing Guild in that this ability, I feel like, is the linchpin of their entire thing, and it's worth noting this ability is only available in the advanced game.
Right.
So if you're just
everything.
Yeah, like I would say like Spacing Guild is fun in the regular game, I'm sure.
Well, if anything too, it is fun because in the regular game a lot of other people are missing big parts of their main powers too. So if anything, I would say in the normal rules, Spacing Guild feels crazy because they just have all these things at their disposal.
Yeah.
And everybody else has like a ability, one ability, and then everyone else gets all this new crazy stuff. But Spacing Guild also gets a crazy thing that keeps them, well above the pack.
I would just say from a design standpoint, though, this next ability kind of defines the flavor of the faction.
Yeah.
So the next ability is called Ship and Move when you wish. You may take your shipment and move action out of turn. This would allow you to go first or last or in between other players' turns however you wish. The rest of the factions must make their shipments and moves in the proper sequence. You do not have to reveal when you intend to make your shipment and move until the moment you wish to take it. So the Spacing Guild basically in the shipping and movement phase can just at any point just say like, I want to go now.
Yeah.
And the fact that they have all these different types of shipment, this really works together to make them basically the like surprise attack faction. They can suddenly go for the win, and you had no way of knowing. Go ahead.
The main way you're going to use this too, I mean, you can go whenever, you can do cool opportunity stuff, but the biggest thing is you're just going to always go last because being able to see what everyone else has done and then reacting to that is a pretty major part of Dune. So I would say like your earliest strategy to adopt is just go last every single time, almost no matter what, unless there is an obvious reason to do otherwise. But it's like what their ability should be ship last, like just wait everybody out. That could be enough. The fact that they gave you the option to also go in between any other time for other timing attacks is like icing on the cake. But in Dune, to be able to go last is just a huge deal by itself.
It is pretty cool. I'll call out a couple situations where you might not want to go last. I would say last is probably the default.
Right.
But if you are, so like one rule that I feel like as we've gotten more and more into Dune that feels like is a really important rule in kind of a very gamey way that I don't know exactly how I feel about. Like this isn't a review, but it seems like this rule comes up all the time. There can only be a single battle in a stronghold at one time. So like at one time there can be two opposing forces and then like a Bene Gesserit advisor, but it has to be flipped to the advisor side.
Right.
And that's the max amount of stuff that can be in one spot fighting, basically. Or actually,
which means that's right. So for Spacing Guild, the whole point would be you go earlier so that you make sure you jump on a stronghold before somebody else is going to get the opportunity to go there.
Yeah.
Because it's their last ditch effort. If two people are present in a stronghold, that's it. Nobody else is allowed to even try to touch it. So Spacing Guild gets to pick and choose which strongholds they want to actually attack, whereas everybody else has to kind of like wait and see.
Yeah. So I mean, this could result in a situation where the Spacing Guild wants to go early to clog up a specific stronghold or as many strongholds as possible because another player is going for the win.
Yeah.
It could be even something as simple as like Space and Guild sends a single force to whatever, to Arrakeen. All right, well now nobody's going to Arrakeen unless the other player agrees to like retreat or something silly.
Right, which can be huge. Even it's funny you bring up Arrakeen because that's like, okay, you just eliminated anybody else from getting ornithopters. Like you just completely ruined everybody's movement. It has nothing to do with them even trying to actually take the stronghold. It's just you can plug up the ornithopters and keep everybody off.
Right. Another reason you might want to not go last is if you're coordinating with your ally. Either going back-to-back with your ally or going specifically first so that your ally can do something on their turn. There's a lot of really cool stuff, like kind of team stuff you can do because you can go whenever you want.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I would say the most obvious applications are surprise attacks. Unexpected, like, I mean, I'm sure there's lots of situations where, all right, well, it's not that I need to go first or last specifically. It's I need to wait till so-and-so goes, and then I'm going to do something right after them because I think they're going to, abandon this stronghold or whatever. And I would say a lot of the stuff we just talked about, Ginger brought up. We had a lot of pre-errata this week, but it was all mostly from Ginger.
Right.
So
Ginger wrote his own guide and sent it to us, and we're gonna pull some of his nuggets from it. But like, you could go read all of his stuff too, and probably hear from someone who has more games in their belt.
Yes,
but
certainly.
you're gonna see a lot of that stuff echoed here.
Yeah. Okay, are we ready to move on to the Kurama card?
We're always ready to move on. Actually, I'm never ready. Kurama cards are still something that like completely like I buff up against as a player, just because I never want to go look in the rule book.
Right.
But so I could honestly tell you right now, Hunter, I genuinely have no idea what the Space and Guild's Kurama ability is.
I'll say this. Kurama cards seem to be, how like this is for older fans of the show, how like early on when we were playing Twilight Imperium, we would be like, and then there's their promissory note. That's not so good. I don't know how to use that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then everyone would be like, no, it's really good. You guys are idiots. I bet that is the theme with the Kurama cards.
Yeah, every week we'll be like, it's meh, and everyone's going to freak out again. We'll get to that later.
We got to be real. We got to be real. The Space and Guild Kurama card is that you may use this card to stop one off-planet shipment of any one player. So you can play it and be like, you can't ship. No shipping.
Yeah. That seems good. That is obviously good for stopping someone on the game-winning round that they would have or something. That has very obvious potential.
Yes. The thing about Kurama cards in general is that you only have 4 cards in your hand. And the fact that you're going to save this one that you could play at any time to like save you some money essentially, which I guess Space and Guild doesn't really need to save money. So I mean, maybe if you're just that far ahead with Spice, you're just like, I don't even need this. I can just hold on to it. Maybe that is a point for it. I don't know. But it does feel like it's a very specific situation we're talking about where this card is going to win you the game. It's a situation where there's only one player that can stop you, or only one, or even defensively, it's like they only have one route, in which case, this would stop it, which is cool. I don't know. It's one of those things where you really have to theory craft to like make up a bunch of situations where it can be useful. To me, it seems like I can see those, but I'm always going to be tempted to use the Kurama card as like a save me some money kind of card. I invite the Errata to come tell me that you should hold on to it all game or whatever.
I mean, I can certainly see the argument of holding on to it all game because it could at the very least help you stop someone else who might stop your opportunity to win or whatever. Like it's obviously useful to hold all game, but I get that idea of like sometimes you just need to get 2 defenses and 2 attacks and have that in your hand and be able to use that. Or like, especially with your very bad revival, like I would rather have the Talaxlu tank card where you can pull all your guys out of the tanks. I would much rather hold on to that card for like a good moment and have a good, have a good set of attack and defense cards in my hand over having the Kurama.
Yeah, I would say that I think the way I would most like to think about this card is if I get it, we need to look at my current situation and say, hey, is it maybe time to just go for the victory right now?
Right.
Because I've got this, you know what I mean? And then like, what does that path look like? And then maybe you go for it. I feel like if that isn't the case, I don't really like the idea of holding on to any cards all game that aren't like a solid set of weapons of defense. I want to, especially with the Spacing Guild, who is really bad at fighting. Like it's wild that your economy is so good and you can ship your forces wherever you want, but like there are just some like Bene Gesserit or like Harkonnen that like it might not even matter how many forces you can ship there. Like you're just not going to win.
Your main combat advantage is the ability to overwhelm, and some of your opponents have things that stop even that from being a factor.
Sure.
It can be pretty crushing.
Yeah. Let's talk about their alliance ability, because it is juicy and tasty.
Yeah.
Allies may ship from their off-planet reserves onto Dune or cross-ship from one territory to another with forces that are already on Dune at the Spacing Guild half-price rate. Your allies,
basically all of your main abilities.
Yes. Your allies win with you. If you win with the Spacing Guild special victory condition. So yeah, you get to ship off planet, like very cheaply, and from off planet, I should say. However, there is one note. With the Spacing Guild 3 types of shipment, they can ship forces on Dune to any area. Right. It doesn't have to already have their forces there. They can just be like, surprise, I'm here.
Yeah.
You can only do it to places where you're already at.
I see. So you're only reinforcing yourself from cross shipments.
Yeah. And what I mean, and I mean that with the cross shipping of forces already on Dune.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's talk then about, we're going to get into like what how each faction feels about this, but in general, I mean, this even in the non advanced rules, like everyone wants to be the alliance or the Spacing Guild's ally, right? I mean, this feels to me like the most sought after ally in most of my games.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. They are super attractive. Everybody is going to want to be your friend because this is just such a solid ability. The Emperor is the only other faction that really like has a lot of money, disposable money, and they would probably even be down because the thing about the Emperor is that their whole problem is that they start with all their forces in reserves. They have no forces on planet, so like even the rich folks are looking at your ability, being like, let's go for it.
Yeah, right.
And essentially, all of the poor people, we're talking Harkonnen, Atreides. They could totally use this. The only faction that I feel like can't quite make use of this is maybe Fremen.
Yeah.
Because they don't ship off planet, so they can only use the cross shipping stuff. However, Fremen could make it work. They just have to be specific about where, they have like maybe separate stacks that they can ship in between more easily. I don't know. Like you could make an argument for it.
We talked last week about Harkonnen being the person mostly looking for you as an ally, right? Like for your ability, Harkonnen is pretty thirsty for it.
Harkonnen would love to be your ally, but I mean, so would basically everybody else.
That's true. So let's flip it around then, and tell me which ones are we. Since we get the pick of the litter, we get to just like everybody wants to be our friend. Whose friend do we actually want to be? Or let's start with kind of the obvious who we could care less about.
Sure. So I mean, it really just depends on your needs within a given game.
Yeah.
Do we need to win fights? Do we have like a not very good hand at all, and maybe we've like suffered some losses? We lost like our 5 leader, God forbid.
Yeah.
So we need to win fights. That means we're looking at Bene Gesserit, we're looking at Harkonnen, we're looking at Atreides. And I feel like if we're just doing well, if we have a strong position, we held on to TXCH, maybe we just go with the Emperor and basically tie up the economy of the game.
Yeah.
And really just kind of troll the table because it's pretty potent. But let's talk about Fremen first, because Fremen is kind of the outlier. I would say overall, you can't really make a bad choice as the Spacing Guild, except for the Fremen. And the thing about the Fremen is you're probably not going to pick them because you get to pick whoever you want for the most part, right?
You're never going to be left in that scenario.
Yeah. I will say there are some notable things, like you both want the game to go to the end.
Sure.
Which could bring you kind of, you're at least kind of both like, oh, we're on the same page here. So you kind of line up in that way.
Can you win with the Fremen victory condition, or does theirs override yours, right? So if you both stall it out, but then Fremen complete their extra steps, does Fremen win alone?
Oh, that is a very good thing to check. In addition, your allies win with you if you win with the Fremen special victory condition. So you might as well both go for the Spacing Guild one if you're together.
Right.
But what I mean is that maybe we're talking about a situation where the mid-game has gone horribly, and you and Fremen are looking at each other like, you know what, we're kind of on the same page here. So I could see a situation like that. Fremen also grant you 3 free revivals, which is nice, but you're not really worried about money. And honestly, if you are in a situation where you lost a lot of forces to the Talaxi tanks, the Emperor is going to do you better.
That's true.
Even though it's not free, the Emperor is going to help you get more out of the Talaxi tanks.
And you two are going to have so much money that it's negligible to get you all of those free all those revivals. Those are not free, but those revivals are going to come easy.
Right. So yeah, I mean, with the Emperor Alliance ability, they can pay for your revivals, and they can get you 3 extra, which it's like Fremen is only giving you 3 freebies, but you're still maxed out at 3, so you're not getting more than 3 out. Which honestly, like if you're in a situation, honestly, money is no object if you have a bunch of forces stuck in the tanks. You just want them out. It doesn't matter how cheap it is. You just need them out. So yeah, you're also like, you're so good at movement that there's a sandworm thing that the Fremen basically can make it where sandworms don't kill you.
Yeah.
But hopefully like you don't have to worry about sandworms because you can just like ship wherever you want at any time.
Well, and the big advantage of the worm thing is if you're playing the spice game, and it doesn't really seem like Spacing Guild has almost any reason to play the spice game. I mean, maybe you would occasionally, but like you have plenty of money. It's not ever a thing you need to do unless you're just trying to block other people out of the spice money. But in general, there's not that many situations why you need to end up out on a spice blow where a worm could come hit.
Yeah, I agree. And you're not a scrappy faction. We're not going to get into frivolous fights. Well, we're going to get in fights because it's like for the game or to block the leader.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're not like Harkonnen where you can just like go out and like, you know, be really, especially early game, scrappy and contest the spice blow. What's cool is that you could steal spice blow that no one else can get to because you're just the only one that can get there.
Go there. That's true. Yeah, that feels like the only time you go for spice. To me, as Spacing Guild, I'm not going to ever like go attack Harkonnen to fight them over the spice. That seems crazy stupid to me. Yeah. But when it's just that spice, it's like, oh, hey, cool. No one else can go there. I'll send a few guys. I'll send 4 people out there to go get all of that spice. And even if they die to the worm, this is why the Fremen thing even more doesn't matter. Because it's like, you know what? I kind of built that into the cost of maybe going to get those guys. Because they cost me half price to get them there in the first place. And they may double their money, right?
Yeah.
It seems like it's just you just go for it when it makes sense to.
I think it would have to be a real rainy day for any of this to make sense. It would have to be like almost a post-apocalyptic Dune game where most everybody's lost all their forces to the tanks. Because the thing is about the Spacing Guild financial advantage is if people aren't shipping, then you're not getting money. And if everybody's dead, there's not a whole lot of shipping. Seriously, though. I mean, you can watch the game that I put on YouTube like last week where I'm playing as Harkonnen, and like towards the end of that game, everybody like the tanks are overfilling, you know, which is not great.
Spacing Guild's just crushed. No more money, no more inflow.
Right, and that's the thing is if the Spacing Guild gets kind of caught in the fray, they could end up in a late game situation where they are kind of on their bad foot. But let's talk about the Emperor Alliance combo. This one in our games personally, we have found to be overpowered. It feels like
I feel like this is the first one everyone sees, right? When you sit down to play Dune the first time and you know you can be allies, you and the Emperor are always right off the bat inclined to be like, oh, you could just lock down this money and have that just be the thing, and everyone's like, oh no, please don't do it, and just like that's the game, right?
Yeah, and
it's how it feels.
What do we mean by lock down all the money, though?
Right, it's not. I feel like we've maybe been bad about putting this point out there because we both talk about being kind of a fan of this, and then I see lots of comments of like, well, it's not that good because, and the main argument I've seen is you end up with so much money, but then nothing to spend it on. You can't get enough units down. You have nothing else to put the money into. But that's exactly the point. There's kind of a closed economy in Dune, and if you and the Emperor have all of the money, it means nobody else has any of the money, which means nobody else is getting any of the stuff on the board to do any of the things they need to do. It's okay if the two of you are bogarting every last piece of spice out there, if that means that nobody else gets to build stuff.
Right. Yeah, it's really just about like kind of being like, hey, we're both rich. Let's not share our money with the poor folks. It's not a very elegant like alliance.
No,
I'll say that.
Yeah.
It's not cool. If anything, it's maybe kind of cheesy, to borrow a term. But you're still, I mean, you're going to ally with somebody, and Fremen sucks, so it's cheesy. But there's only 4 choices you have here. Like,
right.
So, I mean, it doesn't help you be really tricky, or like there's not, a bunch of special battle abilities you'll have now. It's really just that you have a bunch of money, and I will say, I do think it is fair to reiterate that, like, if you get in fights and lose a bunch of guys, then the Emperor will help you get those guys right back out of the tanks. So maybe you can be even riskier. Like, maybe there is like
I think so, for sure.
Yeah, like a shoot from the hip spacing guild that you can kind of do if you have the Emperor as an ally. Ginger actually had a good way of describing this alliance as the brute force approach. It's not elegant. It's just like, bam. It's like, here's all our guys.
Push everybody out. Yeah.
Let's talk about the more interesting ones, though. Emperor is cool and effective, but there's more interesting stuff to talk about with these last 3. So we're going to talk about them kind of roughly in order of my interest. Truth be told, they're probably not that different from each other. Maybe Atreides is maybe the worst of these last 3, but like not by a whole lot. Because we're a Spacing Guild, we're bad at fighting. We're looking at the alliances that make us good at fighting. Atreides is interesting because you're looking for them to give you knowledge of what other cards the other players have. You're looking for you want a peek at the Atreides book so that you know what fights to pick, because you can pick whatever fight you want. You know what I mean? Like you can ship wherever you feel like and whenever you want to. So you can decide, all right, Atreides, you're better at fighting than me. You're going to go fight so-and-so because I can't fight them. I'm going to fight this other player because I know for a fact they do not have the cards to beat even my meager hand, basically.
This seems like the most plotty alliance, right?
Yeah.
Like, because Atreides has raw information that you can use your crazy timing attacks in conjunction with. Like, there is a pretty nice synergy there of, like, they know who's got a weak thing, and I've got the ability to strike at weak points. We can make all of that work together. I think that is where the strength lies with Atreides. Is the way you win with an Atreides alliance is, that one stronghold became slightly vulnerable, and you knew exactly what cards you were gonna be up against, so you knew it was a fair bet to jump on it at that time.
Yeah. I will say their alliance ability of like forcing someone to show you an element of their battle plan, that could also be helpful, but I feel like the plottiness of it is maybe more important.
Yeah.
Because I feel like in a situation where Atreides is a good ally for you, it's kind of a situation where like you're not doing so hot, like you don't have like a great hand in front of you. So like regardless of you knowing like, oh, you're using this instead of this, you probably don't have that many options in your hand if we're looking for an Atreides alliance. Because I feel like these next 2 we're going to talk about, if you've got a decent hand, the 2 of you can do
way more
some damage.
Yeah.
But I would say that Atreides is kind of an old faithful, just like no one's gonna scoop up Atreides before you get a shot at them. So like maybe it's worth it. Another thing that I feel like is worth noting with both Atreides and Harkonnen is that you have no use for ornithopters. Every other person that allies with, I feel like, Atreides or Harkonnen early game, they're kind of doing themselves kind of a weird thing because they're locking themselves out of ornithopters for one of those 2 strongholds, right? So which means they either got to, and especially with Atreides, the idea of allying with Atreides is always kind of weird to me because I'm basically saying, oh, I can't go to Arrakeen and easily get ornithopters, and of those 2 houses, Atreides is the one that I would rather pull that move with.
Right. Yeah, but Space and Guild just kind of doesn't care about that aspect.
Yeah.
So you are better. What you're saying is you're better suited to be one of their allies than most other factions would be.
Yes. Let's talk about Bene Gesserit. So the voice is, the best fighting ability in the game.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to go ahead and describe it here because I feel like we talk about so much in these alliance aspects that
there are other abilities.
Yeah. And we haven't talked about Bene Gesserit yet. So voice is you may voice your opponent to do as you wish with respect to one of the cards they play in their battle plan. For instance, to play or not play a specific weapon, a poison weapon, projectile weapon, las gun, whatever. You can say whatever you want there. Or defense, snooper or shield. Worthless card or a cheap hero. If your opponent can't comply with your command, they may do as they wish. So the thing about the Bene Gesserit is they kind of have to. It's informed by like their knowledge.
Yeah.
Hopefully the two of you can kind of combine heads on this. But yeah, you can basically, if you have a decent hand, the Bene Gesserit can set you up for you both to be these like sneaky assassins that are just like killing leaders, which is like your problem, right? You have bad leaders, so you need to be able to kill your opponent's leaders because that's going to be the wiggle room that they have on you,
Yeah, blocking other people's defenses is a pretty major... being able to say, hey, you can't play this because you've got the right attack card is like kind of clutch to being able to pull off victories when you can't overwhelm in any other way.
Right. And one thing that Ginger pointed out that did not occur to me is that advisors, which are these, the Bene Gesserit can flip their force tokens to either the fighter side, which operate pretty normally, or advisors. Advisors can kind of like occupy an area and just like surprise flip. Advisors are actually a pretty solid counter to the Spacing Guild,
right?
In that we were talking about Spacing Guild wants to be able to control like when fights happen and clogging up various strongholds, being like, oh, you can't fight here because only one fight can happen here. Well, Bene Gesserit is also pretty good at that. Advisors can flip on each turn after the Spice Blow and Nexus phase. So that's before shipment. So basically, Bene Gesserit can get in your way even before we get to your movement advantage. So, like, I would say, logistically, this probably makes Bene Gesserit a better ally than I'm necessarily going to give them credit for.
Yeah. It gets them out of your way is the only thing. By making them an ally, it's a problem that you have that is now not a problem.
And it's wild, though, because, like, the two of you can basically really manipulate that rule of, like, there can only be a fight in a place at a time to your advantage, I think, to a very wild degree. But I want to talk about the one I'm really excited about right now, which is Harkonnen. Harkonnen kind of has a lot of answers to, and it's interesting because you could go back to our Harkonnen guide, and a lot of the things that we said that was true for Harkonnen were just kind of solidly true for both factions. They kind of feel like kind of fit together because Harkonnen has the boots on the ground that you're looking for. They're fighty. They're crazy fighty.
Yeah.
And if Harkonnen doesn't have mobility as a problem and also like is able to borrow money in order to bid on cards and to continue to basically, if you can solve Harkonnen's economy problems, I think Harkonnen gets really, really scary. Yeah. So I think Spacing Guild is definitely bringing Harkonnen up. But what I feel like I've realized in writing the guide from Spacing Guild's perspective, which I didn't necessarily expect, was like being allied to like a super awesome Harkonnen that I kind of am controlling the purse strings for is actually a really, really good. Sounds like a really solid strategy.
Yeah, well, because you're looking, it feels like the 1-2 finish is what the two of you are pulling off. For a bunch of the game, you're helping fund Harkonnen and you're doing all this stuff, so Harkonnen is getting into these really scary positions, and Harkonnen is basically better on defense.
Right.
Like, they are scarier to attack into. When Harkonnen attacks you, it's obviously scary, but more often, once Harkonnen is somewhere, everyone else is going to be like, I don't think it's worth trying to push there, because they're there, and who knows what they've got in their hand. So if you can set up areas where Harkonnen has them on lockdown, then your ability comes into play of like, and let me snatch up that last one. Boom, we just won.
Right.
That's what that relationship feels like. Is like Harkonnen does all the muscle until you come in and finish the job.
And it makes Harkonnen scrappier.
Yeah.
Which like I feel like they're described a little bit as like kind of a hedgehog, just like you want to avoid fighting Harkonnen if at all possible, but also Harkonnen like doesn't. Harkonnen is scared of losing fights too. Harkonnen like really can't lose fights.
Yeah.
And it feels like if we're saving all of this money that Harkonnen doesn't have in order to allow them to ship, it feels like they can be a little more like, all right, I'm going to threaten a bit more, basically. So I think the big factor when it comes to Harkonnen versus Bene Gesserit, this factor I think is oftentimes going to add up to like, oh, you should probably go with Bene Gesserit, is where is Harkonnen in their own game at the point where you can ally with them? Because if a lot of times I feel like Harkonnen kind of doesn't, like there can be games where they don't pan out, basically. They're really strong in the early game, but what if there's no alliance early on, and then later it's just kind of like, well, so-and-so stronger. I just feel like I would like to see a Space and Guild Harkonnen alliance, because I feel like it could be really effective. But it really depends on where Harkonnen is at and if they are kind of the worthy one. And also, that's kind of worth saying here at the end of this section for all 4 of these. Look at the meta aspects of like, who is the stronger player just in general. That's probably the one you should go with, if we're being honest. Like, that's probably the number one factor is like, you're the Space and Guild. You're a great ally to basically everybody. Fremen is just like some weird notes to it, right?
Yeah, right.
But it's not like you couldn't win a game being allied to Fremen. Because if you're allied to Fremen, that means nobody else is allied to Space and Guild, which means nobody is getting the juicy Space and Guild discount.
Right. Yeah, the breakdown, if we called Atreides plotty and Bene Gesserit alliance was just like sneaky, I would call Harkonnen like tactical, which I feel like that's like the best thing you can be in Dune. Is just like once you are able to do like really wise tactical maneuvers, you're in the best spot you can be in.
Right.
But obviously, both of those other approaches have games that they do very, very well in. So it all just comes down to where once that alliance can come up, where are you in the game and what is actually possible.
Right.
But let's take a step back then and talk about that early bad start, because I think learning how to get the ball rolling as Space and Guild is probably really, really important to them, especially because, I mean, when we talked about Atreides, we talked about, like, you hit the ground running and, like, make some plays and see what you can get out of it, whereas Guild feels like, hey, make sure you have a plan going into this, because you might need to make sure you hold on for the entire game. You may be aiming for that round 10 victory, and so your round 1 might be even more important to, like, not screw that up. So can you walk me through the Space and Guild early game, because it feels way more trepidatious than everybody else's?
Sure, it is a little bit. I don't want to overstate it too much, though.
Sure.
Like they're generally gonna do fine, but you could run into a situation where there's a lot of meta against you. Okay. You're like Jolnar. So like you are kind of weak. But you're going to make a lot of money, basically guaranteed. And you have a target at the beginning of the game. In round 1, you have 5 forces on Tux Sietch. So you're not like the Emperor where all of your forces are off planet. There's something that people could strike at right at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
And also, we only start with 5 spice, which is not that big a deal once we get to the movement phase, but in that first bidding phase, that's kind of a bummer. You're not the worst. Fremen, I think, only start with 3 spice, which is a super big bummer for that first bidding phase. So you're doing a little bit better than them, but also don't take it for granted that, like, you might not actually make that much money from shipping that first round. So if you spend all 5 of your spice on cards, that might be the only thing you do, so you got to be careful. There's kind of, I think, a balancing act with Space and Guild of, like, we want to win a card if we can, but if we have to pay too much for it, we might as well wait till the next bidding phase where we can maybe be more dominant.
Yeah, you're going to make money in the first round's phase, maybe, most likely, so why squander all your cash on a card you might not even use round 1, is the way it feels to me. Like, to me, it feels like, I would like a card, but I'm probably going to have a really good chance of getting a card next round, so I might as well wait it out.
Yeah. We need to start building the hand, but let's be careful.
Yeah.
What's interesting to note, this isn't necessarily a round 1 thing, but it is kind of fair to say that if you're playing with an Emperor that you feel like is going to be really aggressive early game, any money you give to the Emperor just comes back to you, right? You're giving the Emperor the money in the bidding phase, they give it back to you in the movement phase. So kind of like try and read people that first round. And let other players move like first. We're probably gonna go last in the first round, I think it's fair to say. And like see what they do, their spending habits. What are they going for some like early aggressive stuff? That's almost good because then you're gonna get some money and then you have more options basically going into the next round. I would say your likelihood of going for some sort of early game victory is pretty low. It would require, I think, some pretty crazy misplay, but it is possible if people are just like not making it, just not doing things that make sense, and spending a lot of money in that first round of shipping. Also, remember that you do not make money from the Fremen when it comes to shipping and movement. So you might as well not don't think about them. Don't factor them into this.
Right.
So there's really two scenarios I feel like that are worth noting when it comes to the shipping and movement phase for the first round. The first one is someone trying to make a play for your stronghold because they're going for an early game rush or something. And I would say in this case, if it isn't for the win, I wouldn't worry about it. I would leave. You don't want to start your game with like some sort of like, oh, I'm going to stand and fight for this one stronghold. Like you're probably not going to win the fight because I bet if somebody's making a play for it, it's either Emperor or maybe Harkonnen. And you're probably not winning those fights, so don't worry about that. And also, I think something worth noting is that if someone, like, for some reason doesn't make a play for some spice, you should go get it.
Yeah.
But you are not a scrappy.
No.
Spice
it's only if
person.
It's been left completely empty, like we said earlier.
Yeah.
You just a bit ago, you offhand mentioned something, and I just really wanted to call attention to it. Mm-hmm. It's like my least favorite thing in the Dune rulebook, and it's the fact that the Fremen doesn't pay you because of the ridiculous technicality that they're not shipping from off-planet. And I get that if you really are aware of the theme of everything that's going on, that's a pretty easy thing to remember. Mm-hmm. But in the rules, it's literally just like one extra word added into the sentence of the Fremen's abilities that would dictate that. There is nothing that calls attention to that, where I did not know that was the case for like the first 3 or 4 games of Dune that I played.
That's funny.
It's just a thing that completely passed me up, and then we played on TTS one time, and they were like, oh, no, Fremen doesn't pay Spacing Guild. And it was like, wait, what? Why not? I don't understand. And that's just like first on the list of the many weird technicalities that Dune presents you with.
It's thematic. Why would they have to pay the
It absolutely is. I get it. I get that it's thematic. But if you don't know the universe of Dune that well, you just kind of that is lost on you in a very major way.
I mean, Matt, that would be like if I paid Uber to go from my bedroom to my living room. You know what I mean? That's what you're suggesting. I'm not gonna call up Uber and be like, I need a car to go. I'm gonna make some eggs. I don't need a car for that.
Well, fine. It's beautiful thematics, and what an amazingly well worded design
rule
space
book and
we're
everything.
in.
Yes, very good. Let's talk about their weaknesses overall. The
designers of Dune or the Spacing Guild. Sorry, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I liked that. No, that was good.
We adore the designers. We just don't love their use of language.
Right. So, weakness-wise, we've kind of already covered some of this, but yeah, we've got bad leaders. We're not going to have that many cards early game. We have no combat abilities, and your economy is tied to players shipping, so if things get dicey, you will make less money.
Yeah.
I would say Emperor is basically guaranteed to make some money at the beginning of the game, and you are not, which is kind of the difference there. I feel like, but also Emperor needs that money because they're going to have to ship everybody onto the planet.
Right.
So yeah, I would say watch the Emperor early on is important. Like, get an idea of like, are they an aggressive Emperor? Are they going to wait? If they wait, that's kind of more annoying for you. And yeah. So
of these weaknesses, the biggest deal to me seems like the leaders thing. Everything else kind of feeds off of the fact that you don't have leaders to back you up, right? Anybody else can have a weakness, but it's like, yeah, but I still got Fade Ralpha. I'll be all right, or whatever. Like, there's always good leaders to back up like mistakes or something to just to turn the tide of that battle. Whereas you're almost never turning the tide of a battle with your leaders, which means you are doing it by like it was said earlier. I mean, you are kind of a brute force faction. And so that kind of emphasizes all of the other weaknesses because there's nothing there to protect it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, don't lose that 5. The second you lose that 5, oh my God, you have
If anything, that's also a scary prospect of, we're putting that out there, but like other people, if they know that they can grab your 5, like if their 5, if your 5 is in their starting hand, that's a good one to keep, because if you can knock out the Spacing Guild's 5, they've got almost nothing left. Like they're dead in the water at that point. Yeah,
I agree with that. Also, like, I was playing as Harkonnen in that game that's on YouTube right now that you can watch, and go watch it. And I had that traitor. Like I drew that, which was great. Yeah. So let's talk about how we win. How do we do this? How are we actually going to make this happen? It's actually, I just worded it as if it's hard. I don't think it's that hard. You're basically set up, especially in like a newer group, to take advantage of any misplay. Basically, I think the first game I played as Spacing Guild, I did exactly that because it was like the first game we'd played. Yeah, and there just was a point where they screwed up and they didn't count things up, and they didn't realize that I was going to go after, and then I was able to make like a play for the win, basically out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think in the first couple games of Dune, Spacing Guild feels like this absolute unstoppable dominating presence in your just when you're first learning all the mechanics and you are bound to make mistakes. It always feels like Spacing Guild is there on the back end, just taking advantage of everything you've done wrong.
Right. One thing that I find fascinating that I haven't actually seen come up that many times in games, and I think it's because our meta just hasn't developed to this point, but don't let the table make you the policeman. Don't let the table be like, all right, well, Spacing Guild, so-and-so's about to win, so you need to do something about this. Yeah. What you could do instead, which is maybe kind of mean, is force other players to stop the winners. Yeah. So you can be like, no, I'm going to take my movement now, knowing full well. Yeah, exactly. So I would say don't let people use your ability against you. Always stay in control. Yeah. Mostly because, like we've established over and over, if there's anything that I want you guys to walk away from with this, is you're not good at fighting. So we got to be choosy about when we fight. So if other players are telling you have to fight here, make them do it, because odds are they're going to be better at fighting, and also you need them to wear themselves down so that you can actually beat them. Also, this is kind of a deal-making faction. Again, our meta, I feel like, has not progressed to that point where deal-making is huge, but this is the faction that is most set up for that type of play.
Well, and you got to think about it in terms of the other players, right? Like in the Atreides guide, we talked about like there is an opportunity there to sell information. Well, the main person you're going to sell that information to is the Spacing Guild. They're the ones that are there to buy information. And, and that goes for, you have to think about every component from that aspect. Like, what can those other factions offer you that you can buy? It's not really, it's deal-making almost in a one-way direction. More or less. I mean, it's just what all can you take advantage of your extra money to get?
Yeah. And then I think kind of the final note for Spacing Guild in general is never forget about your alternate winning condition. Right. And if you're getting pretty deep into a game, it's probably worth considering going for, because I feel like Spacing Guild as somebody going for the win outright, obviously, there's some problems there. Spacing Guild trying to play just spoiler and make the game go long, you are so set up to do that. Yeah. Just clog up those strongholds with just nothing burger fights, and make it where, and especially if you're allied with Bene Gesserit, oh my God, you guys could just get to the final round and be like, all right, everyone's going to have to reorganize completely if they want to even go for the win. And they're going to have to all coordinate in order to do it. You can totally imagine situations like that. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to go for the other condition and try and win. Now, although be careful though, because Bene Gesserit could always try, or actually, can they steal that one from you? I don't think what is the final ruling on that? If Bene Gesserit predicts that it goes to the end?
No, they can't. They can't? It doesn't. Yeah, they don't get that. You have to actually win in round 10 for Bene Gesserit's prediction to do anything.
To be right,
yes. So if you're on a team with Bene Gesserit, it's because Bene Gesserit has given up on, like, they've already missed their, they did, Fremen in round 3. That passed. All right, time to ally with Space and Guild. Let's ride this thing out.
Right. Just real quick, kind of casually, in Rex, though, wasn't it the other way?
I honestly don't. We only played Rex like 3 times, but it to my memory of it was that it was the other way. But we could have just been misplaying it. The official rules, maybe it's different, but I felt like you could stall out the victory with the extra and win with them. But that could be 100% wrong. That's just how I think we played it in our few games. But extra also never won in either of those scenarios, so it didn't come up.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm gonna try and not stall out this guide in order for me to win. I'm just going to go for the victory right here now. I think that's what I got. This is the intro.
I think it's good, and I think there's nothing that, honestly, there's nothing that tricky about Space and Guild at the end.
No.
Like, we put a lot of effort on saying, like, hey, you're not good at fighting, but it's like, yeah, you're not great at fighting, but also, like, you're probably more or less going to be okay for most of the game. Just like don't whiff it.
Yeah, I think my ideal situation would be to not fight first, to avoid fighting for a while, and then as the big tough boys kind of wear each other out, then I come in and just overwhelm with just sheer numbers. So yeah, let's we got some errata to do, though.
We got oodles of errata. Yeah. The first stuff to get into is from, boy, it's just from so long ago. We did the Atreides thing. We actually called it a different thing. Like, we're now in this thing where we're calling them learning so-and-so, but we didn't do that with Atreides. So if you're looking for it, it's episode 110. But in that Atreides episode, we talked a lot about the Emperor and their ability to give spice from the reserves. We weren't sure on the rulings, and basically Corbec Jane was able to get a response from Gale Force 9 and was able to back us up on kind of how some of these things work. I'm going to just read this first question from Corbec Jane to Gale Force 9. Can the Emperor player give spice from his reserves at any time to his allies? This should be a simple yes or no. And Gale Force 9 said no. They would only be able to give spice in the bidding phase and also the revival phase as part of their alliance rules. So the way Gale Force 9 interprets that idea of giving spice is when you are paying on behalf of them in the bidding phase, that is in essence you giving them money to then pay for the thing. It's a really weird way to have to think about it and not very intuitive, but that is kind of the final answer on that approach.
Yes. Let's talk about number 2. Can a player speak secretly by whispering or going into another room with another player who is not their ally?
This is a big deal in our Atreides episode because we were trying to figure out in what way can Atreides use all of this information? How sneaky and secret can they be? So in the answer to this one, can you talk with people that aren't your ally? Yes, as on page 12 of the rulebook, under the bribery heading, players who are not members of the same alliance can make any kind of verbal deals between one another. Once made, these deals and bribes must be stated aloud and must be honored. A player cannot renege on a deal or bribe. Spice can be a part of that bribe or deal. So essentially, you can kind of just say anything. I've even seen people take it as far as, like, you can show people cards. That may have been a thing that's changed over time. I don't know, but like, you can be really, really wheeling and dealing with information as the Atreides.
Yeah, so this kind of opens up, if you listen to the Atreides episode, there's a part where we're like, oh, it's kind of tricky to get, to share your secret information. I think it's still tricky, to be fair. Like, because this is somebody paying us, like, some spice to know something that they could just be like, oh, it's worthless. You know what I mean? Like, and now I've just given Atreides a spice. But this is how that would go. And I think the reason that we did not initially play this way is because of how the alliance rules are written. Like, they're written as
very
if
specifically. That's
the only way that you can do secret conversations. So yeah, kind of weird, but we can confirm now that you can, that this is the etiquette. You know what? I'm going to say this about the Dune rulebook in general. It has a lot of it. The way that it's set up is solid. But what it doesn't describe, and this might just be a conscious choice, is a lot of like etiquette stuff.
Yes.
That we're kind of used to now with Twilight Imperium. A lot of that etiquette stuff is spelled out. What I mean by that is like non-binding deals, binding deals, like transactions, like a lot of that meta over the table stuff is actually built into the book. And it feels like Dune is a little more like, oh, I don't know, you figure it out.
Yeah, it seriously does come from a different time where I genuinely think if you asked Bill, I mean, this answer came from a guy named Gareth who we've met at Gen Con, and he works at Gale Force 9. If we asked Bill Eberly this question, he would be like, I don't know, whatever you want to do, man. Sounds cool. Like, that's their approach to this kind of stuff. This meta stuff is like, I don't know, man, that's the meta game. You figure it out. That's up to you. They weren't putting those kinds of rules into this. So it leaves the modern gamer some confusion, basically, which is what we're kind of always butting up against. Our next one is from Seville, and it is with regards to selling treachery card information to players. I've seen it argued that because the Atreides can write notes, they could write down the card name and share the note with people. Because this takes a while, the shorthand is just to show the card to people. It's not a secret conversation, as in it doesn't take place away from the table, though in future FAQs it would be nice of Gale Force 9 to define what the secret conversations consist of.
So this is just it's consistent with the same thing.
We're in that same world, but essentially what people are realizing is like they might as well just show the cards, which is something we were pretty adverse to initially, which is the opposite of my opinion on showing cards in Twilight Imperium, funnily enough. But in Dune, it just felt like the rules were reinforcing this idea of like, no, man, you don't get to show anything. It's all about the lies you tell. But at the end of the day, it really is just like, nah, just sneak the card over to them, let them see it, and let them deal with the information.
I included this one specifically because of that last part, though.
Yep.
It would be nice if Gale Force 9 defined what a secret conversation actually is. Because to me, that is a secret conversation. Like, yeah. So I feel like we're kind of at a point now where, and this is good, this is why we do our show, is to like kind of find these little like stress points, these points where it's like, things are a little like confused here.
Yeah.
But hey, Gale Force 9, what is the secret conversation then? Like
what are we doing here?
Yeah, what's the word secret? I feel like I kind of get what the word secret means, you know?
Right. Yeah, it's a secret.
Yeah.
Hey, Hunter, we whiffed a big one. Should we say it that way?
Did we whiff a big one?
No, we didn't whiff a big one, but we vastly undersold a big one. We're now moving into our Harkonnen guide. It was just a couple weeks ago, and in it, I don't know, Hunter, give me the breakdown of how you felt about the Harkonnen Kurama ability.
Well, I'll say this: I underestimated it. I said it was good. I didn't say that it was the most powerful card in the game.
So Corbeck Jane says Harkonnen Kurama is the most powerful use of the Kurama, maybe the most powerful card use in the whole game. So yeah, a little bit of a difference of opinion there, I would say.
Right.
They go on to say, even if your hand is already good, you can make it even better by picking and choosing what cards you want and which ones you don't among a set of 12 cards. And when you put it that way, I kind of get where we're coming at this from, right? It's not just like, hey, we're swapping cards
I have some
around.
errata for Corbeck Jane's errata right now.
Go ahead.
It's actually 11 cards because the 12th card is the Kurama.
Ooh, oh, nice. That's
so
the
we're going to throw it out.
I would get. Throw out the whole thing. You said one number slightly differently, and we must burn you alive for it. Hey, EAK1791 added to this point. They would like to add, if you took their entire hand, you now know exactly what cards they have. I handily won a game by taking all 4 of a Spacing Guild, how apt, players' cards, and giving them 2 worthless cards and a weapon that I had the defense for, a defense that I could get around, and then I easily took the last stronghold that I needed from them. Yes. The point being, you are not only just like messing with cards from people, but much like an Atreides player, this is like your one opportunity to get some very, very real and raw information and also come out on top of it. I think that is by far the most clear-cut use of this being a very good ability.
Mm-hmm.
because information is just such a big deal in this game, the ability to not only change the information, but know what you're giving back and what you've put into their hand to then kind of orchestrate a perfect attack situation is pretty obviously a game winner. I mean, I think something, too, we've talked about a little bit about off-air, Hunter, is that obviously this is good, and I think the reason Dune players are especially very into it is in Twilight Imperium, something that you get that you really only use to win the game is generally considered like, well, yes, that's a good ability, but like it doesn't maybe necessarily get you to the end, right? Like Quantum Data Hub Node is a tech for the Hakan that if you have it, very often can lead to you winning the game. But the sacrifices you take to get to that point are kind of tough. But in Dune, if you get the Karama and you can just hold on to it and you're Harkonnen, you have 8 cards, you probably have the real estate to hold on to a Karama all game. This can be a game winner.
That's the part I underestimated.
That's a big deal. You have a huge hand and it's not any skin off your back to keep a Karama in your hand.
Yeah, so it's the best. It's super good. And now I would like Errata on how it's actually not the best.
Not 12. It's actually, and it's also 11. It's 11 cards.
It's also 11. 12. Well, and also like yeah. You're picking from 11 because you played the Karama card and you can't. Yeah.
Hunter, sense. Will you read this next errata because I refuse to give it breath.
Oh, this is a great one. This is from Evernoob. This is the best errata we've ever gotten. So, by the way, don't mention the South as the Southern Hemisphere because actually the North is the polar region in the middle of the map. So what happened was Matt referred to, and he's
southern
wrong.
portion of the map.
No, shut up, Matt. You actually don't get to talk for this period because you're being put on blast. Evernoob is sit down, Matt, because we're gonna put you in your place. So the way that the map is, it's the North Pole is the center. So you're actually not even really seeing the Southern Hemisphere, I guess. Shut up, Matt. We've got you. So yeah, don't say South because that's I don't know what hemisphere that is, but it's not the Southern Hemisphere. So please don't say that.
All right, we're out of this headspace, and it is time now.
Thank you, Evernoob.
Thanks a lot. It's time to get into the next. God, we have so much more to do. We got tournament updates, so we're now switching gears out of Dune world and back into Twilight Imperium. This is now the old show. This is like a TI episode from a year ago. All right, we have like 5 games we're going to try to cover here, and a lot of these are games that either Hunter and I were present for some of it, but not most of it, or not at all. And so some of this is relying on the moderators in those games, accounts of what happened. And I want to use that opportunity to also say we love our moderators so much, and they deserve every good thing that could ever be given to a human being. Jefferson, Kate, Celia, Milty, Mantis, TG Welch are starting to step into all this stuff too. We've just got this amazing team that I'll say it a million times. We would not be doing this tournament this year if not for these volunteer moderators. Oh, Aviator. I almost left out Aviator. But without these moderators, we wouldn't have had the time to do all of these games with just like Hunter and I. It would have been an impossible task.
There's literally no way.
So this juicy tournament content you're getting, you owe all of it to them. Yeah. So let's get into game number 13. We covered 12 games last time, and game number 13 was had some really spicy stuff. With each one, we're gonna just break down who won it right from the get-go, and I want to give you kind of the breakdown of who was what factions were there, and then we'll have sort of a great juicy play of the week from each one. So Shua was our 13th winner as the Yin Brotherhood in the best one, which has kind of proven to be sort of just a thing that happens. Yin in the best one does all right.
I'm telling you, Yin is like Extra was last year.
Yeah, it's
There's
true.
something about this map that is really singing to Yin.
Yeah.
So we're seeing kind of above average Yin play, I feel like.
Yeah. So the other people on this map were Soul in Speakeasy, Isarl in Warbucks,
that's a weird
L1
one.
in Little Brother, Xcha in Turtles, Mentak in Gashfather, and then of course Yin in Best One. It's worth noting this was our 5th upset of the tournament from last year's finalists. Finalist Mage was actually playing under a different handle, so he actually kind of blew under the radar. He was playing a speaker for the Lazax, but Mage got knocked out, so that's our 5th finalist down for the count in this tournament.
Unaligned Magi is the only one that made it to the semis.
Is the only Magi going into the semis, which is pretty fun. So here's what Jefferson wrote. To set the stage, Soul, in Speakeasy, played by Melinder BT, goes off to a screaming hot start by having Warfare, Gravity Drive, and pulling Unexpected Action all in round 1. He not only filled out his own slice round 1, but took Baragler to 4, and Exxon Dalbutha in round 1. Exxon Dalbutha is on the complete other side of the map. He got into Daddy Warbucks' slice.
Oh, yeah, I saw this.
This is the most wild round 1 I've ever seen. He then waltzed onto Mechatol Rex to claim the Custodian's token in round 2. So he took 4 extra planets round 1 and still was able to take Mechatol Rex like first thing round 2. He does this in part by being buddies with the L1 Z1X in purple, Mage, and L1 agreed to not gobble up his whole slice while he was off gallivanting across the galaxy. Fast forward to the agendas after round 3, and Public Execution comes up while Soul is the speaker and tied for the lead with Yin. Everyone at the table, except for L1, votes for Soul to be executed, and he starts to go on tilt. He lashes out at L1, who is the only person who voted for him to instead execute Yin, and in the same action, Soul refuses to return L1's ceasefire, which L1 understood to be a temporary trade. A non-binding deal has now been broken between Soul and L1 is not happy. I remember this agenda phase because, Yin was tied for the lead, but everyone was just so terrified by the crazy stuff that Soul had pulled off it's Soul, so you kind of always look at them and go, well, they're in the lead, they're clearly like winning, we have to stop them. And I believe Yin actually had the speaker token, so the Public Execution would have been more potent on Yin, and instead they chose Soul. I might be remembering that backwards, but regardless, Soul was not pleased that they were getting, all the punches, and Yin wasn't getting hit basically at all. No one was messing with Yin. We'll clearly see where that feeds into later. Soul takes Warfare, last pick, and decides to spend his round throwing everything at Xcha through the beta wormhole, and abandons his slice to the point where Conquer the Weak comes up. Conquer Weak is the take someone else's home system. And Soul's home system has no units in it except for a lone destroyer and a space dock. Soul realizes that Isarl can easily take his home system through the beta wormhole and tries to make a deal with the L1 Z1X to effectively guard Soul's home system in exchange for swapping support for the thrones. L1 is reticent to make another non-binding deal with the player that has broken one already. Xcha offers his support for the throne to L1 Z1X to stay out of the whole thing and to let Isarl and Soul resolve it on their own. Isarl offers his trade agreement as well to L1. After some complicated negotiations, L1 appears to be taking Soul's offer. He makes the terms explicit that as soon as L1 activates Soul's home system, Soul would trade his support for the throne to the L1 Z1X. After confirming it happens, L1 activates Soul's home system and gets Soul's support immediately. After getting Soul's support in exchange for activating Soul's home system, L1 asks Xcha and Isarl if their offers are still on the table. Their offers meaning the offers to have Soul not interfere with this. So the whole thing is predicated on L1, please come defend me, and everyone else at the table is saying, don't even bother with it. And Soul, after getting the support for the throne, but before moving any ships in, decides, okay, now I've been paid for that. Now does everybody else still want me to not do anything about it? Because you can now pay me to not move any ships in and block this. So seeing the double cross, Isarl does give his trade agreement in exchange for the potentially strong possibility of scoring Conquer the Weak on Jord, and Xcha gives his support for the throne to L1 in respect for the epic hustle payback double cross that L1 just pulled off. This is approximately 3 hours after Soul had originally double crossed L1 when he was tilted from being publicly executed. So basically, then Isarl was able to move in, and later, after Sol's home system was taken by Isarl, Sol actually ends up selling the ceasefire of L1s that he's been holding on to all game to Isarl, which then prevents L1 from later trying to score Conquer the Weak, which blocks them out of their own contention, and the Yin Brotherhood that's been sitting out of this conflict the whole game, literally Sol, L1, Isarl, and Xcha have been like fighting in some way or another for the entire past like 7 hours, and then they all block each other out, and Yin does that Yin thing where we just come out of nowhere and have it, and no one's been touching their stuff in the best one.
Right.
And they made a special point to mention that this kind of fed directly into their playstyle, which is being the reasonable guy at the table who sounds like the table's best friend in comparison to the person who's being so unreasonable. And in this table, they had someone who was actually being kind of unreasonable, like really trying to tank the game. So he just got to sit there and like, hey guys, don't worry about me. I'm just doing my thing.
Right.
So a very convincing win from Shua, but a very wonderful, wonderful play from Mage, who we will miss having in the semifinals.
Yeah. So Mage was playing as L1, right? And all of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What a cool game. Very, very, very fun. I want to call out some of the other people in that game. Jefferson was in that game playing as the Xcha.
Yeah, our moderator Jefferson.
Asgard.
He's the one who got dunked on by Sol for the whole game. He took it in stride, too. He was a very jovial person considering his whole game was getting just thrown into the toilet.
Yeah. And Asgard 1 Helm was playing as Sol. And hats off. I mean, I think in a kind of a meta way, you, like maybe learn some lessons about angering people, basically, or double crossing people. But that early play,
Melinder BT was Sol.
Asgard,
Melinder BT.
I'm sorry.
BT. Yeah, that's fine.
Well, Melinder BT. That Sol opening was
amazing.
Very, very good. That was some great play.
A beautiful ballet.
Yeah. Cool game.
Let's move on to game number 14, which their username is crazy, but we've been told we can call them CUSA. It's UWSNYCUSA, whatever. But they
whatever.
They won as Sol in Speakeasy. So that's kind of another trend that we've been seeing in terms of victories. But also at the table was a Barony in Turtles Paradise, Hakan in Little Brother, Isarl in Daddy Warbucks, L1Z1X in Gashfather, Xcha in the best one. This one I don't have nearly as many notes on, but suffice it to say that this was a very, very dealy Sol. This was Schroeder has been knocked out of the tournament. This is the second coming of Schroeder, is what CUSA is. He got an early trade convoys off of Hakan, which gave him the opportunity to be a huge deal maker. He sold military support, he said, around 15 times. They were never, when other people played trade, he was never refreshed for free, but he instead always opted to go ahead and spend the command counter to refresh commodities. And Hakan, who was also being locked out of trade, the two of them just traded every single round, no matter what. And basically, in the end of the game, the two of them were the powerhouses that couldn't be stopped, and he was just able to eke it out ahead of Hakan. So it was that Janor / Schroeder, build everybody up, wheel and deal, do all sorts of crazy stuff, and come out on top of everybody else. So a pretty decisive victory, I would say, from CUSA.
Yeah, that's
and also,
cool.
We have to mention CUSA is over on the Tabletop Simulator Discord and has been putting in a lot of effort in getting split session games run. So if you're someone who can't sit down to play a 6 or in the tournament's situation 12-hour long game of Twilight Imperium, CUSA has been organizing games where they pre-schedule out a bunch of different allotted times to all get together and play a game over sessions. We've actually adopted this strategy in our Good Yin Brotherhood, and we've started playing games, for 2 hours every Saturday instead of trying to get it all in one big block of time. So please go check out. There's a whole separate channel on the Tabletop Simulator Discord called Split Session Multi-Day Games. And if you want to get in there, add your name to the list, and you can have way more opportunities to play TI. It's just a really great effort by him, and we're glad that he's in the semis with being such a good person in the community.
Yeah. Let's talk about that next game.
Yeah. So the next one is a win from Hakan in Lil Brother, which actually turns out is one of the rare wins in Lil Brother. Lil Brother is underperforming a little bit right now.
Lil Brother and Turtles Paradise is
not doing so
trouble.
great. Turtles Paradise I kind of get, but Little Brother actually performed pretty well in testing of this map, and so it's actually a bit surprising to see it kind of slowing down so much. But we had Soul and Speakeasy again, Hakan and Little Brother, Necro in Daddy Warbucks, which is a scary Necro slice, L1 in Gashfather, Extra in Turtles Paradise, and Ghosts of Creus in the best one. This one had some notable stuff. Necro took leadership the first 3 rounds of the game, which meant basically everyone else was completely starved for command counters all game. I mean, a Necro with leadership and then probably maybe also buying some off a tech each round. I don't know if they did or not, but that's like a ton of command counters for Necro and basically none for anybody else. But my recollection is that this game was very tight like the entire time. This was one of those games where just like everybody is all scoring kind of together, and by the end of the game they were all in one solid pack. And Kate, the moderator, sent me this little summation. The first thing I remember about Game 15 is something that didn't happen. First ban was Yin. Second ban was Isarl. Third ban was Barony, not a top-tier faction as everyone is expecting. Then a discussion happened. What if someone conjectured no one banned any top factions? While they were discussing the possibility, I got pretty excited thinking about how different the game could be compared to all the others. But in the end, she believes it was Toaster said he would not go along with it, so if they all fell in line with banning Nalu, Jolnar, and Sar. This meant Soul got into the game and Speakeasy. This was actually one of the earlier times that Soul actually got into Speakeasy, but we saw that happen a lot more after that. And Hakan made it into Little Brother. From the very beginning of the game, I remember there being a lot of pressure on Soul. Even still, they took Custodian's token on round 2, which ensured the heat stayed on them. In the first agenda phase, Necro was elected for the Shard of the Throne and promptly drew a repeal law, so that was a fun little move to secure a point from behind. Then, in round 5, we had an agenda phase where we saw 4 agendas. They drew a Seat of the Empire, which was vetoed, and then a demilitarized zone, which was voted on, and then Research Team Biotic, which Soul paid extra to quash, which is kind of wild to me to hear that Research Team Biotic would get quashed, but Soul paid as support for the throne to extra to quash it. And then the 4th was Minister of Sciences, but it was an extremely close game, and in the last round, every single player had a path to victory, and in the end, the only player no one could end up stopping was Hakan, who had Diplo in their home system, which is just, that's sort of the math of how Diplo has seemed to work out. It was the case last year, too. Diplo, in the final round, by far outperforms all of the other strategy cards for securing victory.
Yeah, super cool game. Lots of I want to point out, because I talked to Luke a little bit about this one, that Conquer the Weak had come out, I believe, or no, actually Conquer the Weak hadn't come out, which actually makes this even more impressive. This game ended with everyone jumping on different people's home systems stuff, basically. Right. Several players' home systems got taken, and I think Luke was like 3rd or 4th down on the line of like people who would win. And because Luke took diplomacy, they were just able to tie it up.
Right.
Yep.
I would talk about Game 16, but it was one I was not present for, and I haven't gotten notes on, so we're actually kicking that one down the road a little bit. We will definitely cover it in a future episode, but if you were in Game 16, which was the win by Axel as the Barony Aletnev in Daddy Warbucks, please hit me or Hunter up on Discord and send us your take on that game, because we want to cover it. We don't actually quite have the information that we need to give some coverage to it. I will just to give the stats some help. That one also had Speakeasy with Necro. Little Brother had Emirates of Hakan. The L1Z1X were in Turtles Paradise. The Yin Brotherhood were in Gashfather. And the Sardak Nor were in the best one. But any players from that game, please send us your notes on that one, and we'll include it next week.
I will say Warbucks has been doing a lot better.
Yeah,
I was worried about
they were
Warbucks.
underperforming for a while, but it's really turned around to now be the winningest slice.
Yeah, lately
it's completely changed up. So we've only got one game left to cover here, and it is game number 17, which is our first Isarl win. Isarl drastically underperformed last year and has been also underperforming this year. Probably the biggest disparity between our tier list and like actual performance. I think you and I continue to like overrate Isarl. Even when this year we kind of like said, they don't win that much. I think they're still doing even worse than like what we
what
give
we
them credit
figured.
for. So the This game also saw Soul and Speakeasy again, L1 in Little Brother, Embers of Muat in Turtles Paradise, one of our few Muat games, Barony Aletnev in Daddy Warbucks, Isarl and Gashfather, and Xcha in The Best One. And this one's got another long... Jefferson, when he types up his reports, is really thorough, and it's very good. It's very helpful because there's details in there that I'm always incapable of remembering to this level. So here's Jefferson's report on game number 17. Game 17 was a dance between Isarl in Gashfather and Xcha in The Best One. Both tied at 9, both with action phase secrets, Xcha with turn their fleets to dust, and Isarl with destroy their greatest ship. Isarl could have won on his first action by throwing everything in range, his flagship fighters, 3 cruiser 2s, etc., at Muat's final War Sun and depleted remaining fleet. The War Sun was only flanked by 3 fighters. But Isarl appeared to be awaiting for Isarl time, i.e. when everyone had passed, to make that move. So they spent most of the round stalling. While Isarl continues to stall, including stealing an unexpected action from Xcha via Magion, Muat throws his War Sun at a reasonably fortified Mechatol with a Barony non-Euclidean shielding Dread fleet in a somewhat last-ditch effort. There were no Muat survivors. There are now no other flagships or War Suns on the board except for Xcha's in the Xcha home system linked in with the PDS network. Isarl now needs to find a different way to win. So that stalling ends up biting him in the butt, basically. People continue to take runs at Mechatol, believing that Barony, holding diplomacy from Daddy Warbucks, is going to win the game. L1Z1X throws a relatively small fleet of the damaged Barony fleet with 2 Barony PDS on Mechatol and 2 extra PDS on Baron Glurta 4. If Barony scores a couple hits, Xcha could potentially shoot at the incoming fleet to turn their fleets to dust. The Barony cannons completely whiff, so the 2 extra PDS shots can't destroy enough to destroy their fleets. So they instead just decline to shoot at all. So now, Isarl and Xcha continue to try to stall each other out, to which Isarl replies he's not going to take any meaningful action until he's the last player left. Xcha's only chance now to turn their fleets to dust is by activating Mechatol Rex and rolling lights out on his 3 PDS shots to kill the 3 remaining Barony hit points in the system. So Xcha activates Mechatol. Xcha puts on an act like he forgets all of his stuff was locked down and goes, well, might as well shoot. The PDS produce only 1 hit. Since Isarl stole unexpected action from Xcha, Xcha's only remaining out is for Isarl to run into the buzzsaw of Xcha PDS. Xcha continues to stall until Xcha passes. It is now finally Isarl time. Isarl agonizes over the board state and potentially losing in the status phase, but still passes. Status phase comes up. Muat can't score. Barony gets to 8, and Isarl, in the status phase with construction, scores establish a perimeter to win the game instead.
Whoa.
So kind of a wild, one of those ones where the hot potato is almost like in reverse. Instead of everybody looking for the leader, it's like, we had this happen to us a lot last year, Hunter. I don't know if you'll remember many of the details of them, but those games where we have the game master vision. We can see everybody's cards.
Right.
And we see how one person can get a win, but then one thing changes on the board and it's like, oh wait, but that gives this person a chance. And that just keeps moving around all over the place until we can't even keep track of who's potentially going to win anymore. That's kind of the vibe I get of this one. It's just like, is it Isarl? Is it Xcha? It's back. It's fourth. It's back. And just, finally, there was also something that happened in here, and I don't know the exact play, but in this game, there was something Xcha did with a trade writer in the agenda phase. If that Xcha player can send us that, I will read it next week for sure. There's something very tricky they did that I don't have the exact details on.
I also want to shout out to John, who was in this game. John played with me when I needed somebody for my Hunter Donaldson fan club stream this month, and he wrecked my game.
John is also Celia's husband.
Yes.
So while Celia has been moderating hours upon hours upon hours of games, John has been holding down the fort at home. So John, just as much service is due to you, just as much of this tournament is owed to you for your, keeping Celia's life on the rails while she dedicates way too much time to this stupid thing we're doing.
Right. Oh my God, 13-hour games. That's been a thing. Do you want to talk about stats now?
I do. I don't want to go crazy. We're not going like in depth. We'll save that stuff for like the final wrap up. But just we're like basically at the halfway point now, so it seemed worth it to kind of cover just like what are we looking at. So some of the noteworthy stats I have here, just to talk about the draft first, is Winnu is the only faction that continues to be completely unpicked and unbanned. So it has never once been banned, but it has also not been picked at all.
Yep.
There's a few other factions that have been never banned. Let's see. Bans 0. Arborek has never been banned. Muat has never been banned. Sardek Nor has never been banned. But they have all had at least, 1 or 2 picks.
Oh, where
them.
is this, by the way? Your stats page.
It is in the Discord, in the Patreon tournament chat. You can find it pinned in there. There's a SCPT 2020 prelims map stats. This is public. This is all public information. Anybody can pull up these stats and take a look at them. The only other notable thing, and we didn't cover it today, but we actually have had a Clan Asar game finally. Up to this point so far, Clan Asar had been banned in every single game, but we'll cover next week the game that Sar was finally not banned in.
Whoa, Sar! I didn't even know that. I'm finding that out right now that Sar actually made
Sar
it
made
into
a game. Wow. Best one remains the top pick for Slice, and Speakeasy remains the bottom pick. 16 sixth picks for Speakeasy, 13 first picks for Best One. In the middle, it does get kind of messy, except for Little Brother as 5th pick, and surprisingly, actually, Daddy Warbucks has more picks as its 4th pick instead of 3rd. So that order of going Gashfather into Daddy Warbucks is getting kind of thrown off pretty often, actually. So then just last little fun nuggets. Soul obviously banned often, but very, very often as one of the last bans. Soul and Jolnar are almost always that 5th or 6th ban, so everybody has been continually pushing that off onto somebody else to deal with. And picks-wise, per slice, we've seen 6 souls in Speakeasy, and that is the most we've seen of any one faction in any one slice, followed up only by Asarl tribes in Gashfather, which we've had 5 games and only 1 victory from. So maybe people need to shake up their idea of Asarl in Gashfather. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and so I that's about it on drafts. I don't know. Let's see. Performance-wise, Daddy Warbucks does pretty well. They're scooping up there a Barony of Letnev in Daddy Warbucks, which is not a combination I would have thought would work. But they have an average score of 9.3 in Daddy Warbucks.
It might be a situation where it's just win more. The win more-ness of it is
so much money
everything.
that you just can't be stopped. But let's go over just some game stats too. Then Gashfather Part 3 has 5 wins as of right now out of 18 games, and Speakeasy has 4. And then Best One and Daddy Warbucks at 3, Little Brother at 2, Turtles Paradise trailing behind at 1.
I don't want to spoil this, but I'm looking at this Clan Asar game, and Clan Asar isn't even in Speakeasy.
Yeah.
Clan Asar made it into the game and wasn't even the first pick.
Oh, we'll get to it, bud.
I am excited.
Yeah. Our most played faction so far is the L1Z1X MindNet with 15 games, followed up by Barony Letnev at 14. And we've only seen 1 Clan Asar, 1 Universities of Jolnar. Yeah. So I don't know. Hunter, anything else to you strike out on these stats? Let's see.
It's so Excha has not been
not done well. 12 picks, 0 wins.
Yeah, zero wins, y'all. So those of you that are still kind of hung up on the like Extra's awesome in tournament competitions, I don't know. I think you should think about switching it up.
Compared to last year, L1's been doing horrible as well. 15 picks, 1 win.
Yeah,
that's very bad. That's the most picked faction,
bad.
And not many wins we've seen for L1, which is not what I would have expected based on how well they did last year.
I would say the hot picks right now feel like Yin, 50% of games, but like what, half of those games are wins, right?
Yeah.
9.
Yeah, 4 wins out of 9 games played. They win half the time they play.
Yeah. Soul is a hot pick. Made it into 7 games, but have won, I would say, about half that, right?
No, they've won. At least if my stats are right, they've won 2 games and been picked 7. And they get banned often, so they're actually not doing great. They're ending up in Speakeasy all the time, but they are not, winning all the time.
Interesting. What are some other kind of? I guess Sardak still has a decent
Sardak's doing all right. 1/3 of games that Sardak plays in, they win. 2 wins, 6 plays. So maybe more people could take risks on that Sardak. But, we've seen 6 Ghost plays and no wins, 4 Mentax and no wins. That holds true. 5 Necros and no wins. So that's interesting to me.
That is really interesting.
Necro's the one that's probably underperforming from my expectations. Ghosts and Mentac, we literally put in the tier list as pretty much
right.
Always.
There has been a Necro win.
Then this is... Oh, well, hang on. This spreadsheet is 3 games behind of today's exact date. So it's worth noting.
I just get spoilers. There's a Necro win.
No, but we have 21 games played, and this spreadsheet is only looking at 18 of those. We're working on getting caught up on the last 3 most recent games.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's about all we'll get into on the stats. That's just kind of your look so far. That's your halfway point look at the stats. We've got 36 games total, and that one was covering 18. We've actually got 21 games played and a good bundle scheduled. If we get through every scheduled game coming up through February 9th, we will have 8 games left. So the big thing I want to say to people is if you got your scheduling email recently that asks for your schedule, in the past we've been basing it off of moderator schedules and getting people in on games. For these last few games, I know we're going to have to just figure out when you can play. So please check your email, check your spam folder. If you have signed up for the tournament and have not played a game yet, I need to get your schedule or I cannot get you in a game. I've got a decent handful of people that still haven't responded, and I will say this on the show, there will come a point where I have to kick people out and we have to automatically boost people up to the wait list. I'm not setting an exact date for that yet. We're going to hold out as long as we can, but if we get into March and we haven't finished this thing, we're going to start making some big pushes to get this thing done. The big goal really is to be done before the end of February. So we'll see if we can pull that off.
Matt, I just want to say I love this stat page. It is.
A lot of work went into it, not just from me, other people contributing to it. A lot of it is based off of stuff that Evernoob did last year, and then I kind of modified. And the draft page was set up a lot by Garnet Bear, taking a lot of the information. But yeah, we are doing a lot to try to get you as many stats about the game as we can. And you should take a look at it because many hours of work went into it, and it gives you a pretty interesting look at how games shape out. And when we finish the prelims, the questionnaire for the stat page will be made public, which means after we have 36 games on it, we'll release it into the public and let everybody else start adding to it as well, and we'll see kind of where it goes from there.
Yeah. Okay, and so now we're going to do a little segment called Hunter's Picks for looking at this data. I'm going to give you some insider information.
Okay.
If you are in the tournament and have not played your prelims game, I'm looking at this stuff and I'm thinking, you gotta ban Yin. You frickin' gotta. You really gotta. So I think Yin is kind of promoted to number 1 ban, and then y'all gotta stop taking extra. It's crazy how many people have taken extra, and it is just not. It's just not the year for that.
Yep.
So I mean, I think the smart bans are top 4 plus Yin plus I don't know dealer's choice.
Yeah. All right, let's run it down, Hunter. Give me that rundown.
Oh, yeah. We've got some business to talk about. Hey, so I just want to say up top, thank you to everyone that supports our Patreon. Regardless of level, your support is what makes all of the crazy stuff that we do possible. I mean, the whole reason that this has gone from just being a little podcast to this big, kind of multi-layered media thing plus a tournament, all this other stuff, is because of that. That is what has made that possible. We already talked about the scheduling entrance stuff. So I want to do a little bit of Patreon business updates for our most of the tiers. Hunter Donaldson Fan Club, the poll will be coming out soon. So please, if you have any suggestions, go ahead and hit up the club and let me know. But right now, my current choices are going to be we play a game on what will be the rough draft of the semis map, which is a let's be real, that's going to be the one that people pick.
Yeah, it's a scary map, and I have no idea. I want this one to happen because I just need test games on this map to know if it's busted or not.
Right. And I think that that rough draft of the semis map, I'm going to play with a mixture of our moderators that are available,
cool.
and then also maybe some of the upsets from the prelims. So you'll get to kind of see some of the finalists from last year and our moderators, and that should be a really fun game. And let's be real, that's probably what you're going to pick. But if you don't want to pick that, here are your other options. Dream Daddy Dating Simulator.
Making its return.
It's going to be in there until it gets picked, because I was so blown away by all the excitement around it. I didn't think people were going to get stoked for it. And then another one we could do is we could play Root with the new expansion again. I would play that live with a group of people that I have that like to play Root with me. And then I'm going to throw in EJ's Nuzlocke Twilight Imperium variant just for good measure. I also want to just some updates with the Space Kitty pin. The artist is working on the design right now. I have a small list of manufacturing options. So I think right now we might have Space Kitty pins ordered by like next week or the week after.
Ooh,
and
juicy.
then it's just we get them and then we send them. So yeah, it's still gonna be a little bit of time, but it is being worked on. Weird Bear shirts. I basically have an idea for exactly what the design is going to be of it. I have to get the right artist. I don't necessarily want to collaborate with the same one I'm doing the pins with. And right now it's basically about talking to that artist and getting them to agree to do it.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit longer before we get Weird Bear shirts into people's hands.
I want to thank, speaking of Weird Bears, I want to thank our Weird Bears, Billy, Ponchidori, and new Weird Bear, Farganess.
Yeah, welcome to the club, Farganess.
Yeah.
I want to thank our Space Kitties, Firoso, Scott Radum, Patience, TG Welch, Naderade, Mantis, Rwise, Umar, and Julian. Thank you all so much. All of you are great. Some of you are not as present on the Discord, and I know everybody's got their own things going on, but I would love to see more Space Kitties in that Space Kitty chat. And I think we're getting the episode files up to the correct Patreon tier here pretty soon, right? The episode outlines for everyone.
That might be done by let's just be straightforward. I have been like combing through the old files to make sure that we didn't like put anything weird in there. You know what I mean? Like it would be weird if we just like wrote something that was like completely unrelated, but also maybe like not something that would be good to just put on blast for not even like wrong stuff, just like, oh, like, you know, somebody's address or something like that. You know what I mean? Stuff that could
or that
be like,
time I wrote a whole dissertation on why I think Magi should lose the tournament, that kind of stuff.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
we want to comb that stuff
kind
out.
of stuff too. Yeah, there's that stuff, and then there's just like practical stuff. So I've been combing through that. You all get access to that pretty soon. Actually, you'll probably already have access to it by the time that this episode comes out. And then let's catch up on Twitch and YouTube stuff. Basically, the Harkonnen video is the most recent one to check out if you want to watch a very good game of Dune that has some me and EJ Salt and then ends spectacularly. That's still worth checking out on our YouTube. You should expect to this week see, I'm finally going to get those Oath games that we've been playing up on the YouTube. Hopefully both. My goal is at least one, because I would like for anybody that has missed out on the Oath stuff we've been doing to be able to kind of cram and catch up.
Right.
Because this Saturday, Matt, is the finale we're calling it right now season 0 of a show that we'll probably do every once in a while, where we'll do just like a series of Oath games with kind of an ongoing storyline from game to game.
Yeah. I'm really excited for the finale. This is kind of the Kickstarter edition. I mean, literally rules have been changing as we're playing, and if anything, today a huge update went out. That Oath TTS mod is available now. They just made it available, and with that availability came some rules changes. So actually, when you go back and watch the old VODs of our previous 2 games, there's stuff that's like completely different now. So, you know, take all of that stuff, and we're probably going to keep all the old rules for this Saturday just because it's too messy to like try to change it in our TTS save file. So we're just leaning into it and saying this was the early Kickstarter edition of the game that we're going to finish it out on, and later on we'll play with a once the game has kind of really settled into its place, we'll do another season and let that be kind of the official season 1. But yeah, I'm very excited to see how this one ends. We will be playing on the 4th and final Oath, so we'll have covered kind of all the bases without even necessarily meaning to. So
yeah. I'm really excited for it. The games have had like a very interesting ongoing story that has kind of like bounced back and forth between a couple things. And now we have our kind of final game to decide who is the final
true
chancellor.
Champion. Yeah. With the way we treat these things is there's a winner of each game, but there's only one winner of the season.
Of the whole season.
Everything we're doing is building up to who will win the season and letting the stories of the games feed into that. So yeah, please join us on that.
Which I realize now doesn't make any sense, because it means that all of the individual games what are those as far as like. It's very silly what we're doing. I don't know.
We can in longer seasons, because we will have much longer than 4 game seasons in the future. We'll actually like keep track of who had the most wins and stuff like that. But for now, this one's just about who wins game 4. Hey, well, you can also find us anywhere you get podcasts, and we would love it if you rate us there. Rate us on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, all that business. It increases visibility and gets people more people playing TI, Dune, Root, Oath, all that stuff. That's our big thing, is just trying to get more people to play these games.
I want to throw something in here. Not only rate our show, but I am becoming quite the podcaster at this point. And if you want, you can listen to me on, I am a regular on Dumb and Busted, which is a true crime podcast that focuses on silly, goofy little crimes. That show is fun if you're into true crime stuff or even just comedy stuff in general. It's way more about comedy than it is about true crime. And then I am actually on a show called Read It and Weep, which is a show that used to be about very horrible books, and right now it is about movies. They are doing a season of the show called Slightly Condescending Film School, where myself and my friend Anthony Lopez, who we both consider ourselves some movie buffs, if you will.
Pretty condescending? Yeah, I get it.
Yes, condescending. And we educate our friend Alex Falcone, who is the host of the show, who has been a movie critic in his life.
Wow.
And also has gotten to vote in the Academy for the Academy Awards. And this guy doesn't know diddly twat about movies and regularly has the dumbest take you could possibly have. So, okay, I'll just give you this. He watched Parasite.
Yeah.
Excellent movie that should win Best Picture this year.
Right.
And that everyone is just raving about. And it is probably the most obvious, great movie that came out in 2019. And his takeaway from it, and this is not going to make sense to anybody that hasn't seen it, but I'm just going to throw this out there. He sees this movie and he comes back and is on the show and is just like, you know what? I kind of liked the rich people better. So check out that show while I'm on it.
Bad take.
Yeah.
You can also find us at Space Cats Pod on Twitter, Space Cats Peace Turtles on Facebook, and please join our Discord so you can get in on all the fun conversations and be a part of the up-to-date tournament, overviews and everything. We announce every winner as it happens. So if you want to be a live part of the tournament, get on the Discord. Hey Hunter, do you hear that? What is that in the distance? It's the rules quiz.
Oh,
hey,
no.
Guess what, everybody? Right here at the
surprise end. This episode's long enough, Matt.
No, I wanted it. All right, Hunter.
I'm not ready.
Today's quiz. I love that I get all the... Milty sent me a billion rules quiz things, and he even did me the courtesy of hiding the answers in a spoiler text thing, and I still open them and make you do it, and I don't have to do it because I get all the control in this situation.
All right.
So if you want to fight back, you need to have Milty send you rules quizzes, and you can get me next time. But Hunter...
Oh, wait. So the rules are I need... Because I messed up the one last week.
We make it up every time.
I want to win.
Okay.
Am I allowed to look at... Not like...
No.
No
you
living...
just need to know it. Top of the dome. Just your best guess.
But could I at least look at a faction sheet thing?
Sure, but this one won't be relevant.
Okay, fine.
So you'll be fine this time. I would let you look at faction sheets, but it's not going to matter right now. What happens to a player's scored secret objectives if they are eliminated? What happens to their unscored secret objectives?
Oh my God. What do you mean what happens to their scored secret? Nothing happens to their... Why would... This shouldn't exist. Okay. So what happens to their scored secret objectives? I'm going to say nothing. I guess, and by nothing, I mean they stay scored. Well, what? Okay, do you remove people off the victory point tracker after they've been eliminated? Hello?
Yeah, you do. You do that. You remove everyone's tokens from the board, and the score tracker and everything.
Oh my God! Does it all go back in the secret deck? I wonder.
Ding, 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 ding. When a player becomes eliminated, his secret objectives are shuffled back into the secret objective deck, whether they have been completed or not, as per Living Rules reference 31.7.
Wow.
Isn't that wild? So if you want access to so-and-so's, defeat the leader secret objective, you could just eliminate them and then go do that to somebody else by drawing that secret from the deck. That's one really, really wild way to go about shuffling through the secret objective deck.
Wow, that's really weird.
Yeah.
Well, I thanks, Matt. You did something really nice to me, which was I was just wondering.
I know. I wanted to give you a win, Hunter. Yeah. I felt like you deserved it, and because your mind even went there, I felt like I should just give it to you.
That's wild. Well, I did it. I'm the rules champion now. You can send me Facebook messages in the middle of the night, and that's me answering all your questions. If you send a message to our Facebook,
it's now Hunter,
and you're like, "Who is that?" It's Hunter, and you could even say, "Oh yeah, all right." From now on, okay, new rule for us. For just me and the audience. No, Matt's not invited to this. Whenever you send Facebook messages to our Facebook page in the middle of the night asking rules questions, you should say, "Hey, Hunter, what's blah, blah, blah?" And then after somebody responds, say, "Thanks, Hunter. You're so good at this kind of stuff."
Thanks for listening to Space Cat's Peace Turtles, and thanks to Brian Capillas for the use of his music. You can find more at wanderinglake.bandcamp.com. The spice must flow.